Thank you everybody for coming. I am Matthew Schmidt. I'm the president and CTO at DZONE. And some of you may not be familiar with DZONE. If you aren't, or if you are and you want to meet more of our team, we have a table over in the exhibit hall. Feel free to stop by. We're giving out a raffle for a GoPro and a mini drone. DZONE is one of the world's most popular online developer publishers and technology portals. We cover topics like DevOps, cloud, IT, agile, and a variety of other topics, along with providing quality research guides and cheat sheets for developers like yourselves. We have a global community of hundreds of thousands of developers who have been with us for years and years. We've been around for starting with the Java community, starting in 1997, and grew to start covering all developer technology starting around 2005. The purpose of this talk is really to talk about some of the tools that we have tried and tools that we use on a day-to-day basis as our team has grown, including a tool that we actually built out of trying to solve some of our own problems. So, we were once a very small company. My partner and I started on a couch. We moved to a small office when we had 2 or 3 additional people working with us. And then we had 1 floor of an office building, and now we have 2 buildings and teams in multiple geographies around the world. So with that came a ton of complications in terms of how do we manage to collaborate effectively, how do we keep up productivity, how do we make sure that everybody is able to work together effectively? And that's something that we've struggled with over the years, but now through a variety of different tools, we've been able to kind of make that work. So what didn't work was just simply relying on, okay, well, when we were 1 or 2 people and we had 1 person outside the office, we were able to just pick up the phone and that would work, right? But then we started to hire devs that were in other locations where maybe internet was a little bit spotty sometimes, or maybe English wasn't their first language, and so we had to come up with additional tools. What we found was that no one single tool was able to solve the problems that we had. So we had to rely on what worked for a specific use case. And some of those failures sparked AnswerHub's success, our team collaboration tool and productivity tool. Some of the failures of tools that we tried sparked that success. So why don't we talk about some of the things that we've used, and some of these are going to be very familiar to you guys, some of them may not. We rely very heavily on GitHub for our source code storage. We use that for our own source code for our projects and products, but we also use that to collaborate with our customers, our AnswerHub customers. Every one of them gets a private GitHub repository to be able to collaborate with us as they build their own extensions to our product. And so we've been using their code review tools, just their general source code management. Other tools provides a very similar thing. Some of you guys may use Bitbucket. In the old way, you may have used SourceForge in the past. But no matter what, this modern breed of tools where it's not just your version control system, it is also a way for you to be able to have version control, code review, and a bit of collaboration all rolled into one. We rely very, very heavily on Google Hangouts. You may use tools like Microsoft Lync or WebEx as an alternative. Our Hangouts are the primary way that we handle our stand-ups. We do stand-ups 3 times a week for our entire dev team. And then we break into smaller sessions as we need for the individual squads that are as part of the dev team. But the addition of video to our stand-ups and to our process is something that's relatively new for us. We were primarily using, phone or chat or, non-visual tools to be able to have our stand-ups. And the addition of video to that really enhanced the way that the team worked together. It was able to make them feel as if they were actually part of a team, so that everybody actually knew who the other person was, knew what their lifestyle was like, where they were. They felt much closer to them. And that's, so Google Hangouts really helped us bring those people together. And without that, I don't think we'd have been as productive with our the use of our stand-ups as we might have been. Anthrope is our product. We use it internally to share all of our documentation. We use it to share our processes for our own company. We use it to have teams be able to ask questions across different departments and get answers as quickly as possible. We have all sorts of customers use it for their own documentation, very big in the gaming industry with Epic Games and Unity Technologies, helping them to allow their user communities to collaborate better. We use Jira for issue tracking, ticketing, project planning, time tracking, just about everything that revolves around a day-to-day developer's life. Any kind of project management system, any kind of tool. Microsoft has several. GitHub has issues. Bitbucket also has an issue system as well, I believe. Having a system like this allowed us to make sure that we were tracking how devs were working. We've recently introduced the time tracking so that we can make better estimates of how long we think tasks will take. Estimating is traditionally a very complicated task. Not every developer is equal in terms of how long it takes them to do things. And by integrating that into our project planning and into our ticketing and our support, all of that being rolled into one has allowed our team to collaborate much, much better. This is one you may not be familiar with. It was Screen Hero, and it was recently picked up by Slack, which is a chat and collaboration tool, and is now, I think it's going to be entirely free once they start opening it back up for registrations. Screen Hero is pretty cool. It allows you to give the person on the other end give them control at the same time as you for your screen, so that you guys can share. Say you have your IDE open, right? You can actually have both of you typing on the screen at the same time. You can have the cursor being shared. Voice is also carried over the Screen Hero session. So we use Screen Hero not only for remote pair programming, but also for like collaborative design reviews between our design team and our developers and our management, so that our remote teams are able to participate in those as if they were basically in the office, right? So we sit in a room with a projector and we dial in the remote devs and have them being able to drive to show us things that they were doing. And this tool, I'm not aware of other tools that provide the same exact functionality as Screen Hero, but it's been a real lifesaver in terms of how we are able to collaborate and review code and be able to help each other. This is kind of a fun one. We kind of bought this on a lark. But one of the general issues that we have is that when you have meetings and you have your remote meetings, and even if you're using a Google Hangout, it's always up on a screen, right? And your video is always, it feels very two-dimensional. But with something like the robotic double, although it's somewhat of an expensive toy, you get a much more three-dimensional presence. The developer can dial into the robotic double and drive around the office and be able to join meetings as if they were just right there with you. You have to be a little careful. They tend to drive into tables and then fall and smash the iPad at the top, so you do have to kind of watch it. But this has been kind of a fun one that we've enjoyed having around the office, as we gives the developers a chance to kind of surprise people and jump into meetings as we're talking. I don't remember what they are now. They've been rolling out new versions, but I think they have options for both. So some of them had some battery issues, but I think they largely worked those out. And if you do go with one of these, make sure you get the charging station so that you can back in and pull out without assistance from somebody at the office. So otherwise they get stuck, and that's not very fun. One of the tools that we use probably more than just about anything else is our chat system. Now there are tons and tons of these. As I kind of take probably the next time I do this presentation, we probably won't continue to use XMPP and Jabber. We'll probably use some other tool that gives us a bit more flexibility in terms of integrations and other nice features. Jabber and XMPP is very straightforward. But the nice thing about it is that it allows us to integrate or to use tools that were, just standard tools that you can purchase for your iPhone or for your Mac to be able to have chat. We use group chat rooms pretty heavily for each of the different departments on the team. And we've been using this particular chat system forever. So no matter what, I think that in modern day distributed companies, chat is probably a must-have. I think pretty much everybody has some sort of communication system inside the org. I think that there are even some, if you're using like Cisco's communication package, I think it'll connect into your phone so that you can see when people are busy right inside your IM. I know that people who use WebEx seem to have me automatically, even though I've never added them to my list. So somehow all those pieces fit together. But chat can be both a huge time saver and also a huge distraction. So that's one thing we found is that it has a way of taking on a life of its own. So especially the group chats where it's the entire company, people tend to get sidetracked a little bit, and also then you wind up having 10 conversations happening at the same time, and you have to pay attention to those instead of trying to do what you're supposed to do. And that can be a kind of a problem in terms of productivity. But I think that it's a tool that nonetheless you have to have, because you need to be able to reach people, and not everybody wants to pick up the phone and dial and look through the directory, but you probably have everybody on your chat system as well. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but teleconferencing is a major part of it. Chat doesn't get you there all the time, right? You need to have voice, you need to have video, and you need to have chat. It's all kind of rolled in, and I think this is part of why we're seeing, such a push from Microsoft and Cisco and Google and all these other companies that are pushing the holistic communication package. And we use a variety of things. We have VoIP phones, which we give to all of our remote devs. Those are also tied into software-based phones, and they put those on their cell phones, for example, so they can use our phone system even from their cell phone. We use WebEx very heavily to communicate with our customers, do demos, those sorts of things. There's a lot of alternatives to WebEx. It's not my favorite, but they all have their pros and cons. Join Me is kind of nice if you're looking for a lower cost option to be able to share your screen or have quick meetings. And obviously Skype, which we use a lot of our customers prefer Skype over some of the other systems because Skype is an allowed tool inside their organization, probably because it's now a Microsoft tool, so it fits in with the rest of their communication suite. And finally, beer and coffee. That tends to drive our developers, and probably should have put Red Bull on here. That also seems to drive at least our Portuguese developer team. I think they've built some fairly fantastic sculptures out of all the Red Bull cans. But we drink a lot of coffee at DZONE, and it's kind of an important part of our the way things work. It keeps everybody moving, but I'm sure you guys all knew that. So the future of working on a remote dev team is something that's moving very, very quickly. Not only from because we're a vendor in the space, but also just in the things that we've seen, the new tools that are coming out almost on a daily basis that allow you to collaborate better with your team, or to share code more easily, or to be able to have interactive design reviews. All of these things are, 5 years ago, many of these tools didn't exist. And where will things be as we move forward? It's hard to know. The software is changing so rapidly. You know, we may have the opportunity to use tools like an Oculus Rift or a Samsung Gear, right? These are, if you look at the way that the technology is moving in terms of the engines that power those things, if you look at the stuff coming out of Epic Games and Unity in terms of how realistic their game engines can make something be, right? I don't know if any of you guys saw it was basically an emulation of a walk through Paris, I think. And the thing was very nearly realistic, right? And when you combine that with the something like virtual reality, you'll be able to have it feel as if your remote devs and your remote teammates are right there with you, right? And I think that that's something that if you can deal with the motion sickness that most people get from using virtual reality, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for having it be true telepresence and not just two-dimensional, or everybody's going to be on a screen and you're going to have it all distributed that way. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity there as we move forward and some of the problems get solved, or maybe you don't even need to have the big bulky VR headset mapped to your head as well. So when I do this presentation, yes, I tend to keep the slides pretty short, because what I really am interested in is hearing more about how people like you guys are using tools and what you're using. And so at this point, I want to open up the floor to you guys and take your questions. Yes? All right, I have a very distributed development team. Atlanta, San Ramon, Texas, sometimes offshore. And our biggest problem, we don't do a lot of video conferencing, and we have an internal company tool to see remote desktops and stuff like that. But our biggest problem is design. We get some of the best design done when we can actually get everybody in the same room and we draw on a napkin. Yep. And right now, we don't have any good tools that let us all just draw circles and squares and arrows and stuff. Every tool is like, well, let's select this, and then you get your paint size, and then we're going to do this. And after 5 selections, you get to draw one line, and then just to change the colors and to draw any meaningful design, it takes 20 times as long as just drawing it on a napkin. Absolutely. Have you found any tools that do this better? So that's a huge problem. So in case anybody didn't hear the question, so he's saying that the best work that they get done in terms of designing, I presume not just pictures, but also from at an architecture level, right? That sort of shared whiteboarding is something that's missing. Now, I think that there are tools certainly that have shared whiteboarding, but as I'm sure you know, most people are really, really terrible at drawing with a mouse. So short of giving everybody, pen tablets to be able to draw, which takes some skill to get used to. One thing that we have been, well, that's unfortunate. One thing that we've been using is a tool called Envision. It's not about about doing collaborative drawing, but it allows our designers to upload mock-ups that they've built in Photoshop or in InDesign or whatever, and then allows the rest of our team to kind of flip through them quickly, add comments to different pieces of it, and collaborate that way. One of its problems is it doesn't have an API, so it's hard to integrate with other things that you might be using. We use tools like Balsamiq and Mockflow and other things for doing, collaborative wireframing, but I'm not familiar with a tool that would do, just sort of shared whiteboarding, but make it easier than some of the other stuff that I've seen.
I wonder if touch screens will help with that. Where your monitor is.
One day.
Yeah. So one day you'll just draw your smiley face up on the screen.
Well, so one thing I think you could do, because of the way that you get the multiple cursors with something like Screen Hero, If you had something like that where you had, maybe you had InDesign or Photoshop open, and then you had Screen Hero sharing that, and everybody could share the cursor. As long as you had, enough bandwidth to be able to transmit that to, say, 5 or 6 people, that may be an option that you didn't have before. So, sorry I don't have a better answer. It's a super complicated problem, made worse by the fact that most people can't draw. Any other questions? What kind of things are people using? What kind of tools?
I was just going to say, we have a tool at the office called Smartboard, where you can sort of draw and you can use the fake markers and it draws. And I don't know if you can have multiple of those and you can collaborate, but I know that Microsoft, they just started talking about the HoloLens, but at the same event, I think they announced the Surface Hub, which I think is supposed to be sort of this collaborative design thing to address that same need.
Okay. Yeah, that would be one thing that certainly would come up. I think as the prices for the Surfaces come down, not the Surface Pro and the tablet thing, but the original Surface, right?
That's
the tabletop thing, yeah.
To be kind of like on the wall that you draw on that's bigger.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably, I imagine that, and I think, again, this is a place where there's probably an opportunity for virtual reality as well, but who knows? It becomes a question of how can you get enough people to use it, right? I mean,
that you get the critical mass. Or, it's not just the software you install.
Yep.
It's, a big expensive device.
All right, unless somebody else has got something.
No, go ahead.
Don't want to hog the conversation. Okay, in terms of code review, then, we're stuck in the dark ages, and we get to do a SVN diff between the last check-in and this check-in, and the developer kind of walks through what they've done. I haven't seen I think you said next generation stuff that like GitHub provides. Can you summarize some of the things that it does?
Sure. So,
because I need to go back to my manager and say, look, we got to do something. I need to be able to do this for this level of productivity.
Sure. So, distributed version control is not for everybody, right? So Git is very different, at least if you use it the way that the original developers intended, than something like Subversion or Team Foundation Studio or whatever the Microsoft option is, right? So, so with it, you have, with something like Git, you have each developer working on their own copy and then pushing things up to an origin periodically, right? In terms of code review, there are a number of tools. I think Atlassian sold a tool, and maybe they still do, around code review. I think it was called Crucible. I'm not certain what they call it. So, still called. Yeah. Okay. It's built in, and Stash I think has it, which is their sort of on-premise competitor to GitHub. Really, the big benefit is that you don't have to do it in real time, right? The point of these tools is that it can be asynchronous. So, a developer may push up something and submit a pull request, and then somebody on the team is able to go in and see, okay, well, I'm going to comment on this line, but this bulk of stuff looks okay, and then this stuff, this file is different. And so that tends to be how we use it. It's a much more asynchronous model. Getting people to actually do the peer code reviews is something that we still struggle with, right? So, unless you force it.
In my code review, I've seen it done two different ways. One is kind of instruction, managing the code base, but then there's the workflow you described, which is pull request, which is you're saying, hey, I need to integrate this. So it's a little different than teach you how to code.
So because and certainly in some industries, right, like the review of code before it's done for security and compliance and that kind of stuff, has to be done in a very rigid workflow. For us, it's more, we use it in the model, with these pull requests, which is a more recent use for us, where somebody finishes something, please check it, make sure that it's not going to, at least at an eyeball level, that it's not going to break anything. And then it gets integrated back into the mainstream.
What did I say about the pull request?
Yes.
So at each point, you're seeing how it falls.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it creates a conversation around the code, which for developers is a place that they tend to be very comfortable with, right? And my feeling is that it also reduces some of the anxiety that people probably have around code reviews if they're having to do code review. You know, the old way where everyone is in a room and you're walking through it, and you know, I think that there's a lot of pressure to that, whereas this asynchronous model is a bit easier. Anything else? Any tools that you guys are using that I didn't talk about? What? How are you guys collaborating?
Pots, baby, pots.
Yeah, banging pots, strings on a tin can.
Oh no, plain old telephone service. Call them up.
It's a phone. Yes.
Well, the Agile tools, I mean, we use Mingle.
Okay.
There's a good amount of messaging. In fact, we try to use HipChat, but we end up just putting all those messages in, in the Murmur channel. But the other tools, I'm sure, have some way to send messages.
So you're using Mingle. Are you combining that with, say, like their continuous delivery tools as well, or is it mostly just around the edge?
We just pick Mingle. We use GitHub and other.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of if you're using Agile, most of the Agile tools have places in it to communicate and collaborate and even chat to some, with some of them. So I think Mingle's one. I think version 1 has a tool. They all have something that they claim as their differentiator. So it's really a matter of finding which ones work for your, for your org. So. Anyone else? Anything unique?
We have our own internal desktop sharing and stuff, meeting, calling type thing. I have no idea how much the company's paid for that. It's huge. But what are the different price points for some of these types of conference call, desktop sharing, and what's the low end?
Sure. So, something like Screen Hero, I think we were, had most of the dev team on, and we're only paying like $50-$60 a month. Tools like WebEx are fairly expensive especially if you use their audio. That can run you a couple $100 a month. Google Hangouts is free, and yeah, but then if you do Google Apps, right, then that's that's about $5 a user per month, I think. And we use the their word processing, their collaborative word processing tool a lot for speccing things out and writing some documentation that way. Most of these tools are not they're fairly low cost. I mean, if you go with a whole collaboration suite from something like Cisco or Microsoft, you're going to spend a fortune. But it just depends on the size of your organization, right? So most of these are not going to run you more than a couple $100 a month at the most. Yes.
You mentioned Answer Hub.
Mm-hmm.
Did the kind of Q&A style replace the need for blogs and wiki?
It replaces our need for wiki. We have a knowledge-based module that lets you have hierarchical documentation, and so we use that to document processes and stuff like that. Yeah, largely it's replaced our need for that, and it's replaced our need to some degree, for longer form things to ask questions through the chat, which stops interruptions, right? So that's been our big use case. Some of our customers like eBay, they use it with an SLA, so that we provided an SLA module for them, so that their internal dev support and their internal IT support have a 24-hour window where they must respond to helping people. So there's a lot of different options to the ways that you can use something like that inside the org. But I think our using the not just the Q&A but also the documentation tied together is an important part of the way we use it. Yes. Answer Hub. Yes, that's our product. Yes, that's our product. So you can stop by our table back in the exhibit hall. We've got some brochures, and we'll be happy to talk about it more.
So what is the cost?
It starts as low as $250 a month, and no, well, per install, right? And that gets you 30 users, I think. Anything else? All right. Fantastic, guys. Well, thank you for coming, and I'll be at our table if you guys would like to stop by and talk. We're giving out a GoPro and a mini drone if you would like to have your badge scanned. So, thank you.